3 days before my son's engagement party, I stopped by our flagship restaurant after closing to approve the menu, and my bookkeeper of 22 years grabbed my wrist in the hallway and whispered, "Don't make a sound. Come with me." She pulled me into the wine room, killed the lights, and pressed her finger to her lips. Through the wall, I heard voices I knew better than my own heartbeat, calmly planning how to take everything I had. I stood there in the dark, holding my breath, and I understood that the people I loved most were about to bury me alive. I'm glad you're here with me tonight. Before we go on, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I read every one of them. And a quick note, some details in this story have been changed and dramatized for storytelling, and any resemblance to real names or places is coincidence. But the lesson underneath it is real, and I hope you'll carry it with you. Let me back up to the beginning of that night. It was a Tuesday in June, 10:15. The Magnolia Room, that's our original restaurant on Abercorn Street in Savannah, had been closed for an hour. I'd come into the kitchen to taste the short rib and sign off on the engagement party menu. 140 guests that Friday night. My only son was marrying a woman everyone called brilliant. Glenda was at her little desk in the back office where she's done our books every Tuesday and Thursday since 2003. 70 years old, half retired, sharp as a filleting knife. When she saw me, her face went white in a way I'd never seen. She didn't say hello. She took my wrist, walked me down the service hallway, and pushed me into the wine room next to the private dining room. Then the dark, then the voices. The first voice belonged to Leonard Voss, my attorney for the past 12 years. The man who probated my husband's estate paperwork transitions, who sat at my Thanksgiving table twice. His voice was smooth as poured cream. The amendment is in the middle of the gift packet, page 6. She'll be emotional. She'll be in front of 140 people. She'll sign where the tabs are. Nobody reads at a party. The second voice was Vanessa, my future daughter-in-law, 33, beautiful, a financial consultant I had personally hired 18 months earlier to help us plan our expansion. And the misconduct file? Finished, Voss said. Commingled accounts, unreported cash from the catering side, backdated 3 years. It'll hold up long enough. Monday morning, I notify the board of managers that Carolyn is under internal investigation for fiduciary misconduct. Under the amended operating agreement, her authority suspends immediately and full control transfers to Ethan. Ethan's proxy is already assigned to Harborline. Harborline? I didn't know that word yet. By the end of the week, I would know it the way you know a tumor. And Crestline wires the money when? Vanessa asked. 9 o'clock Friday night. The escrow releases automatically once the signed amendment is uploaded. $22 million for the group, the building leases, the brand. By the following Friday, it's sitting offshore and there's nothing she can do but hire lawyers with money she no longer has. Then a third voice, younger, unsteady. She built this for 30 years. Is this really the only way to do it? My son, Ethan, my only child, asking the question the way you ask whether the medicine has to taste that bad, already holding the spoon. She's slipping, babe, Vanessa said, and her voice went soft and warm, the voice she used on me at Sunday dinners. You've seen it, the double produce order, the meeting she missed. Leonard's just protecting all of us, including her. After Friday, she gets to rest. Isn't that what you want for her? A pause, a long one. Then my son said, "Yeah, okay, yeah." Chairs scraped. A door? Footsteps fading through the dining room. Glenda's hand found mine in the dark and squeezed so hard her ring cut into my finger. I bit the inside of my cheek and tasted blood, and I did not make a sound. When the building was empty, Glenda turned on the light. Her eyes were wet. "They were here last Tuesday too," she whispered. "Same room. I thought I misheard. Carolyn, I'm so sorry, I should have." "Is the menu printed?" I asked. She blinked at me. "What?" "The party menu. I came to sign off on the menu." I signed the menu with a steady hand because some part of me had already gone somewhere cold and quiet where the planning happens. Then I walked out to the parking lot, got in my car, set my purse on the passenger seat, and sat there for a long time without starting the engine. Through the windshield, I could see the gold letters on the window. My name, my husband's recipes. 30 years. My son was going to help them take it, and I had 3 days. I should tell you who I am, so you understand what was sitting in that car. My name is Carolyn. I'm 63. My husband Sam and I opened a 12-table lunch counter in Savannah in 1992 with $11,000, a deep fryer, and his grandmother's recipe box. By 2010, we had 3 restaurants and a catering kitchen. People got married on our patio. Senators ate our fried chicken with their sleeves rolled up. In March of 2011, Sam collapsed on the loading dock between a delivery truck and a crate of Vidalia onions. Heart attack. 54 years old. Ethan was 20, home from Georgia Tech for spring break. I remember him standing at the graveside in a borrowed tie, and I remember telling him, "We're going to be all right. I promise you we're going to be all right." We were $600,000 in debt on the expansion when Sam died. The bank suggested I sell. 2 restaurant groups circled like polite vultures. I said no. I worked the line. I worked the books. I slept in the office more nights than I'll admit. By 2015, we were clean. By 2019, we had 6 locations and $21 million in revenue, and the food writers were calling us a Savannah institution. Ethan came up the honest way. Dish pit at 16, line cook through college summers. After graduation, he asked for a job, and I gave him the worst one we had, overnight inventory at the catering kitchen, because I wanted to see what he'd do. He did it for 2 years without complaining. By 30, he was our director of operations, and he was good, genuinely good. Vendors loved him. Staff would run through walls for him. Frank Delgado, our general manager of 25 years, told me once, "That boy is the best of both of you." I believed him. Then came Vanessa. January of last year. We were planning 2 new locations, and Frank suggested we bring in outside financial help. Ethan found her, a consultant out of Atlanta, references from 2 hospitality groups, a presentation so sharp you could shave with it. I hired her in February. By May, she and Ethan were dating. By Thanksgiving, engaged. She called me Mama C and brought me gardenias and remembered that I take my coffee with 1 sugar, no cream. I'm going to say something now that's hard to say. I liked her. I liked her enormously. That's how it works, you understand? They don't come at you with a knife. They come at you with vaginas. The little thing started around Christmas. A produce order doubled under my login. I was sure I hadn't done it, but the system said I had. A 9 a.m. meeting with our distributor that I simply wasn't at because it wasn't on my calendar, except everyone swore it had been. Vanessa covering for me sweetly, publicly. Mama C has so much on her plate. Ethan's eyes going worried. Voss, at the quarterly review, gently suggesting we modernize the operating agreement to protect continuity. I signed the modernized agreement in March. I read it. I thought I read it. There was a clause about suspension of authority during investigations of misconduct, and I remember thinking, well, of course. What honest person fears that clause? That's what they count on. Honest people read contracts like honest people. So there I sat in the parking lot on Tuesday night, 63 years old, with my dead husband's name on the window and 72 hours on the clock, and I made myself say it out loud so it would be real. They are going to take it Friday night, unless I take it back first. I didn't cry. I want you to know that. The crying came much later, and it came hard. But that night I drove home, fed the dog, and started making a list at the kitchen table like it was a catering order. Wednesday morning, 7 o'clock, I called the one lawyer in Georgia I knew Voss had never met, a corporate litigator named Patrice. No, forgive me. Her name doesn't matter. What matters is what she said when I showed her the photo Glenda had quietly taken of the documents Voss left fanned out on the private dining table. She enlarged page 6 on her monitor and read it twice and then took off her glasses. "This isn't an estate gift," she said. "This is a trap with a bow on it. If you sign this Friday and your attorney files a misconduct notice Monday, you lose operating control by Tuesday and they can close a sale without you by the end of the week. Who drafted this? My attorney of 12 years. She was quiet for a second. Then we don't just need a defense. We need to catch the money moving. If we file too early, they pull the sale, shred the file, and wait you out. The fabricated misconduct evidence disappears, and you've accused your own son's fiancée of a crime you can't prove. She tapped the desk. We let them walk into it. We freeze the transfer the moment it initiates. For that, I need a judge, a sealed emergency injunction, and proof of intent, real proof, bank records, communications, the buyer. How do I get that in 3 days? She pulled a card out of her drawer and slid it across the desk. One name, one phone number. She used to run criminal investigations for the IRS. If there's a paper trail, she'll walk it in the dark without a flashlight. I called from the parking garage, 2 rings. Whitfield? My name is Carolyn. I was told you find things. Who told you that? I said the litigator's name. A pause, the sound of a chair creaking. Then, what's your husband's name? The question knocked the wind out of me. My husband passed in 2011. Sam, why would you? Sam from Savannah, the restaurant on Abercorn. Her voice changed, lost its armor. In 2008, I was building a case against a produce distributor running kickbacks through half the restaurants on the coast. Everyone I approached was too scared to talk. Your husband sat across from me at a diner with a box of invoices and said, "If it's crooked, I'm not protecting it." His testimony made the case. The case made my career. She exhaled. I went to his funeral. I stood in the back. I sat in my car in that concrete garage and put my hand over my mouth. 14 years he'd been gone and he was still standing between me and the wolves. Tell me everything, Dana said, and don't leave anything out because it embarrasses you. Embarrassing is where the evidence lives. I told her everything, the wine room, page 6, Harbor Line, Crest Line, 9 o'clock Friday. She was quiet for a moment and I could hear a pen. 3 threads, she said. The fiancé's money, because nobody runs a scheme this aggressive unless they're bleeding. The buyer, because escrow leaves footprints. And the lawyer, because a man who builds a trap this clean has built it before. Meet me Thursday, 2 o'clock, your house. Bring your litigator and anyone inside the company you'd trust with your life. How do you know the lawyer's done it before? Because nobody's first crime has tabs where the signatures go. I barely slept Wednesday night. I lay on top of the covers doing the worst arithmetic there is. Going back through 18 months of my own memory, sorting which moments were real and which were planted. The doubled produce order. The vanished meeting. The afternoon, Ethan found me searching for my keys and looked at me like I was already a photograph. Had I been slipping? That's the cruelest part of what they did. And I want every one of you to hear this. They don't just steal your money. They steal your trust in your own mind. For 6 months, I had been writing everything down twice, checking my calendar like a frightened woman, apologizing for things I hadn't done. I had started to believe them. That is the sin I find hardest to forgive. At 5:30 Thursday morning, my phone buzzed, unknown number. Found Harbor Line, registered in Delaware 14 months ago. 2 members. One of them is going to hurt. Call you at 8. 14 months. Vanessa had formed that company a month after I hired her, before the gardenias, before Mama C. I sat on the edge of my bed and watched the sun come up over my neighbor's pecan tree and understood that I had never met the woman my son was marrying. Nobody had. At 2 o'clock Thursday, Dana Whitfield walked into my dining room carrying a battered leather satchel. 60, maybe, gray hair in a blunt cut, eyes like a courthouse in winter. My litigator was already there. So was Frank. I'd called him Wednesday, and he'd gone pale, and then very, very calm, and said, "Carolyn, I've had a folder in my desk for 4 months. I didn't know how to show you." So was Glenda, sitting in the corner with her purse on her lap like church. Dana laid 3 folders on my dining table, red, yellow, black. "Red first," she said. Vanessa, her real history. The Atlanta references were genuine. What they left out was the private investment fund she'd run on the side from 2019 to 2022, which lost its investors just under $2 million, several of whom were not the kind of men who sue you. Dana laid down photographs. Vanessa at a marina in Hilton Head with a heavy-set man in a linen jacket. Vanessa outside a cigar lounge in Jacksonville with the same man April, May. A screenshot of a message from a burner number, July 1st, Billy. Full amount. No more conversations. "She owes $1.6 million to private lenders out of Florida," Dana said. "She's been paying interest in $40,000 pieces. The last payment bounced. Her deadline is July 1st. Your engagement party is June 13th? She looked at me. "Your family isn't a marriage to her, Carolyn. It's a withdrawal." "Yellow," she said, and opened the second folder. "Harbor Line Capital Partners, LLC. 2 members, Vanessa and my son. His signature on the formation documents dated last April." Then the part that made Frank put his hand flat on the table like he was holding it down. "Emails between Vanessa and an executive at Crestline Hospitality Group, the Charlotte chain that had tried to buy us twice and that I had twice told no. Our vendor pricing, our expansion plans, our recipes costed line by line, all delivered 10 months ago. A $400,000 consulting payment to Harborline, and then sabotage, plain as a recipe, the anonymous health code complaint at our Broughton Street location that cost us 2 weeks and a headline. Our executive chef poached by a Crestline restaurant with a salary nobody sane pays a chef. The hospital catering contract, $900,000 a year, that we lost when our bid arrived late. It hadn't arrived late. It had been sent late from our own server at 11:58 p.m. They spent a year making the company sicker and cheaper, Dana said. Crestline gets a Savannah institution at a panic price, $22 million for something worth $35. Vanessa's cut washes through Harborline and goes offshore. Her lenders get paid, and there's money left over for a very nice life. Frank opened his own folder then, the one from his desk. Transfers he couldn't reconcile, small ones, $5,000 and $8,000 at a time, signed under Ethan's authority. Meeting minutes where Vanessa, sweet as tea, planted the phrase, "as we transition leadership," a printed email where she wrote to Voss, 6 words, "I will hear until I die. She's almost soft enough. Hold steady." And the black folder, Dana said quietly, "is your lawyer." Leonard Voss had done this 3 times. She laid the cases out like cards. In 2017, a widow in Macon, 80, a $4 million pecan operation. Voss restructured her trust. A nephew took control. She died in a facility 2 years later. In 2020, a retired contractor in Brunswick, $7 million. Same clause, same tabs. His stepdaughter sold everything in 90 days. In 2022, a woman named Sylvia, 81, who owned 3 apartment buildings in Augusta, and Sylvia's granddaughter happened to be a paralegal who smelled smoke, fought it, and forced a sealed settlement. Voss paid no price either time it surfaced. Bar complaints dismissed. Lack of evidence. "Sylvia's alive," Dana said. "I spoke to her yesterday for 2 hours. When I told her your story, she said, and I'm quoting, 'Get me a camera.'" I sat there looking at 3 folders that contained the unmaking of my life, and the strangest thing happened. The fear left. It just left, the way a fever breaks. What stayed was something older and harder that I think I inherited from my grandmother, who raised 6 children to the depression on cornbread and spite. "Friday night," I said. "Walk me through it." My litigator stood up. "The party starts at 6. The toast and the gift signing are scheduled for 8. You don't sign. At 8:15, you take the microphone for the mother of the groom remarks. You will have roughly 30 minutes because the escrow releases at 9 and we want them frozen mid-reach, not warned in advance. The judge has approved a sealed emergency injunction. It unseals at 8:55. 2 investigators from the State Elder Fraud Unit and 2 officers will be seated as guests. Sylvia testifies by video. And Carolyn," she paused, "once you start that speech, there is no version of Friday night where your family comes out whole." I looked at the photograph of Sam on the sideboard, the one from the day we hung the sign in 1992, both of us squinting into the sun like fools. My family didn't come out of the wine room whole, I said. Friday we just stopped pretending. It was Glenda who spoke up then, from the corner in a voice like tissue paper. There's one more thing, Miss Carolyn. Last month I came in early and Ethan was on the phone in the office. He didn't know I was there. He said, I can't keep doing this to her, and then he listened a long time and he said, No, you're right, okay. Her chin trembled. I should have told you. I was afraid of what it meant. I crossed the room and held that woman while she cried into my shoulder, and over her head I looked at Dana and asked the only question that mattered to me more than $22 million. My son? Is he one of them or is he theirs? Dana didn't soften it, and I have respected her ever since for that. He signed the formation documents. He believed the worst about you on thin evidence because believing it came with a promotion and a bride. But there's no trace of him in the sabotage, the Crestline emails, or the misconduct file. My Red? He's a man who let himself be lied to because the lie flattered him. She closed her satchel. You'll know for certain Friday night. People show you who they are when the lights come on. Friday came up hot and gold the way June does in Savannah. I will tell you honestly how I spent that morning. I had my hair done at 9 and made small talk about hydrangeas. I steamed my dress, dove gray, the color of armor if armor were kind. At 11, Ethan came by the house to drop off place cards, and he stood in my kitchen doorway and he looked terrible. Gray around the eyes. He hugged me longer than he had since his father's funeral and said into my hair, Mom, whatever happens, I want you to know I love you. I held my son and I felt the truth and the lie of him at the same time, and I said, I love you too, baby. I have loved you since before you had a face. He left. I stood in my kitchen and let myself shake for exactly 1 minute. Then I stopped. At noon, Dana texted, everything in position. Sylvia is ready and, quote, wearing her good earrings. At 6, the Magnolia room glowed. String lights in the live oak out back, 140 guests, shrimp and grits passed on silver, a jazz trio. Vanessa floated through it all in white at an engagement party I noticed even then. Kissing cheeks, calling me Mama C, settling me into my chair like I was made of sugar. Leonard Voss arrived at 7 with a leather folio under his arm and squeezed my hand in both of his. Big night, Carolyn. You have no idea, Leonard. At 8, the trio went quiet, and Voss stood up with the folio and his fountain pen and announced warm as a preacher that in the spirit of family and the future, I had a gift for the couple. Applause. Vanessa's hand on her heart. 140 faces turned to me. I stood up. I did not walk toward the pen. I walked to the microphone. Before any papers, I said, the mother of the groom would like to say a few words. I've earned them. I've been feeding this town for 33 years. Laughter. Voss's smile held, but his eyes went to Vanessa, just for a quarter of a second, and I felt that quarter of a second land in my chest like a coin in a jar. I talked about Sam first. The lunch counter. The recipe box. The night in 2011, I sat in a dark office with a calculator and a $600,000 hole and decided not to quit. I watched my son's face soften and his eyes fill, and God forgive me, I used it because I needed every heart in that room on my side for what came next. Family is built on trust, I said. So in the spirit of trust, I want to share with you all exactly what I'm being asked to sign tonight. Behind me, the screen we'd rented for the slideshow lit up. Page 6, enlarged, the clause highlighted in yellow. I read it out loud, slowly, the way you'd read a verdict. Suspension of all authority upon notice of internal investigation. Immediate transfer of full operating control. Authority to sell, merge, or dissolve without further consent. And here, I said, as the screen changed, is the internal investigation. Already written, dated this coming Monday, accusing me of fraud I did not commit, drafted by my own attorney of 12 years, Leonard Voss, who is reaching for his car keys right now, and the two gentlemen at table 9 are going to help him sit back down. The room did not gasp. It went silent, which is worse, and then it gasped. What happened over the next half hour, I will compress, because some of you have written to me that the not knowing is the hardest part, so I won't make you wait the way I had to. The screen showed the Harborline papers, the Crestline emails, our recipes, our bids, our poached chef, our planted health complaint, the $400,000, the photographs from the marina, and the message that said July 1. Full amount. Vanessa stopped being a bride somewhere in there. She stood frozen by the cake table with her face doing something I'd never seen it do, which was nothing at all. And then Sylvia, 81 years old, on that screen in her good earrings, looking down the camera like a hanging judge. Leonard Voss wrote a clause just like that one for my family, she said. I lost my buildings for 11 months and almost lost my freedom. If a stranger hadn't fought for me, I'd be in a home right now and he'd be at your party drinking your wine. Ma'am, don't you sign one line that man has touched. Voss ran. He actually ran, knocking over a chair, and made it exactly 4 steps before the elder fraud investigators had his arms. And then it was 8:55, and my litigator stood and announced the injunction, and at 9 o'clock sharp, the screen changed one last time to the escrow portal to 3 words in red that I intend to have framed. Transfer bloke to court. They arrested Vanessa under the string lights while the jazz trio sat with their instruments in their laps. Wire fraud conspiracy, theft of trade secrets, elder exploitation. As they walked her past me, she leaned in close, calm as Sunday, and said, "You'll die alone in that office." I looked at a woman drowning in $1.6 million of her own making and said, "No, sweetheart, but you're going to live a long time exactly where you put yourself." And Ethan. My Ethan went down on his knees on the brick patio in his good suit in front of 140 people and sobbed like the 20-year-old at his father's grave. Glenda got to him before I did. She knelt right down on the bricks with him. If you're still with me, do something for me, comment the word "still here," so I know you're standing with me in that garden. And tell me the truth, with everything on the line and your own child in front of you. Would you have taken that microphone, or would you have found another way? I read every answer, and I promise you, 15 months later, I still ask myself the same question. One more gentle note before we continue. Parts of what follows are dramatized for storytelling, and if you need to stop here, I understand. I crossed the patio and knelt beside my son, gray dress on red brick. "How much did you know?" I asked. "Just that. No softness left, none needed." He looked up with his father's eyes ruined by crying. "I knew I signed papers for a company she called tax planning. I knew Leonard wanted you to step back. I knew she kept showing me proof you were slipping, and Mom, I wanted to believe it. That's the thing I can't live with. Part of me wanted you to be slipping, because then it was finally my turn." He bent over his knees. "I didn't know about the debt. I didn't know about Crestline. I swear on Dad, I didn't know about page 6. People show you who they are when the lights come on. My son showed me a weak man telling the truth. I have thought about it for over a year now, and I'll take a weak man telling the truth over a charming one lying. It's not nothing. It's also not enough, and both of those things stay true at the same time. The legal part went the way these things go when the evidence is a brick wall. Leonard Voss was disbarred in October. In January, he was sentenced to 9 years for fraud, forgery, and a pattern of elder exploitation. And after the trial made the papers, 4 more of his former clients' families came forward. Vanessa took a plea in February, 11 years, federal plus restitution she can't pay. Her lenders, I'm told, sold her debt to people even less patient. The state's case mentioned my company by name, and Crestline's executive resigned to pursue other opportunities, which is how rich men spell handcuffs they barely dodged. Ethan was not charged. The prosecutors interviewed him for 9 hours and concluded what Dana had concluded at my dining table. He resigned the following Monday anyway, before the board could meet. He paid back every dollar that had moved under his signature, sold his truck to do it, and moved to Asheville, where he found a line cook job under his own name in a kitchen where nobody knew his mother. He started seeing a therapist who specializes in coercive relationships. I know all this, not because he told me at the time, but because for months the only thing he could manage was a short email every other Sunday, careful as a man walking on ice. I answered everyone, briefly. I was walking on the same ice from the other side. The company steadied. Frank became my chief operating officer, which should have happened years before, and the day I told him, that 66-year-old man teared up over a clipboard. We won the hospital contract back. The chef came back too, hat in hand, and I let him stand in my office doorway for a good long minute before I said, "Station's yours. Don't ever make me read about you again. Revenue this year will pass where we were before they started bleeding us." And I did one more thing. I paid for an independent cognitive evaluation, 2 full days with a neurologist in Atlanta, and I sent the results to my board, my new attorney, and the court. No impairment. Memory and executive function in the top range for my age. I keep a copy in my desk. Not for them, for the frightened woman who spent 6 months checking her calendar twice. She earned that piece of paper. The letter came in the spring. 5 pages, handwritten, Ethan's cramped engineer's print. He wrote about his father's shadow and mine, about being 34 years old and still introducing himself as my son before his own name, about how Vanessa had made him feel, for the first time, like the main character, and how cheap that feeling looks to him now, and what it cost. One line I keep folded in my Bible. I let someone teach me to grieve you while you were still alive, because grieving you was easier than competing with you. I will spend the rest of my life being sorrier than you will ever know. I wrote back 2 pages. I told him the truth, which is that the con needed a crack to crawl through, and I helped make the crack. I gave that boy a company when what he kept asking for, in every language but words, was a mother who came home before 10. I chose the legacy over the kid the legacy was for. Vanessa didn't invent his hunger. She just catered it. I forgave him in that letter. Forgiveness, I have learned, is not a feeling. It's a decision you make once on paper and then again every single morning. In June, a year and 2 days after the party, he asked if he could come home for an afternoon. He wanted, he said, to stand in the old lunch counter spot on Abercorn, where the original 12 tables used to be, where his daddy taught him to crack eggs one-handed when he was 6. I got there early. I sat in my car in the same lot where I'd once sat with a signed party menu and a heart full of rubble. At 2 o'clock, a gray sedan pulled in, and my son got out, thinner, older around the eyes, steadier somehow, and there was a young woman with him, a school teacher named Anna who knows every detail of the story, and came anyway, which told me most of what I needed to know about her. He stopped a few feet from me, the way you stop at the edge of water you're not sure will hold you. I opened my arms. He crossed that parking lot like it was on fire. We stood there a long time, my son and I, 2 people who lost everything that doesn't matter and very nearly lost the one thing that does. Then we went inside, and I tied an apron on him without asking, and we made his father's biscuits in the back kitchen while Anna sat on a prep stool and laughed at our flour-covered arguments about oven temperature. We didn't fix it all that afternoon. You don't. You just start, and then you keep starting. I tell family drama stories like mine now because somebody out there is sitting where I sat, sharp as ever, successful, certain, while someone patient teaches the people you love to doubt you. So hear me, from one gray head to another. If your memory is suddenly failing only when certain people are in the room, write down the dates. If a trusted advisor brings you papers with little signing tabs and a warm smile, take them home overnight. Every time, no exceptions. No honest document fears the light of morning. But the bigger warning is the one that doesn't fit on a legal pad. My near ruin didn't start with Vanessa or Voss. It started years earlier. Every evening I chose the office over the supper table and called it providing. Empires don't hug you back, and children who feel invisible will follow anyone who claims to see them. I got a second chance in a parking lot on Abercorn Street with flour on my hands and my boy in my arms, and I know full well not everyone gets one. So don't wait for the whisper in the wine room. Call your kid tonight. Not about the business, not about the paperwork, just to hear the voice. Sit down while it rings. Some fortunes you can freeze with a court order at 9 o'clock sharp. The other kind you protect one ordinary phone call at a time. Some nights I still stand in the doorway of that wine room and run my hand along the shelf where I held my breath in the dark. People ask me if I was lucky. I don't think luck is the right word. Everything that happened that June grew out of seeds somebody planted long before, the way everything in this life does. Vanessa didn't fall from the sky. She walked through a door that my own choices had left open. A son who felt invisible. A mother too busy building to notice. An attorney trusted for so long that nobody checked his work anymore. You harvest what you plant. The bitter part is admitting some of those seeds were mine. But here's the other half of that same law. The half people forget. The good you plant comes back too, and it keeps no calendar. Sam sat across from an investigator in 2008 with a box of invoices because hiding crooked paperwork wasn't in him. And 14 years later, that one act of plain honesty sent Dana Whitfield to my dining room table. Glenda spent 22 years doing the books straight and quiet, and when the moment came, that same straightness made her grab my wrist instead of looking away. Decency isn't decoration. It's the only investment I've ever seen that pays out exactly when you're bankrupt everywhere else. Honesty alone wouldn't have saved me, though. I needed a clear head when every instinct screamed to confront them that night in the parking lot. Wisdom, real wisdom, is mostly the discipline of waiting, letting the trap close on the people who built it, reading page 6 slowly when your hands want to tear it up, asking, what do they need me to believe, instead of, how dare they? For 6 months, they had rented out my own mind to me, and the day I started writing down dates instead of apologizing, I took it back. If your memory only fails when certain people are in the room, that's not age, sweetheart. That's arithmetic. And then there's the part nobody can hand you, the spine. Standing at that microphone with my son's face in front of me was the hardest 30 minutes of my 63 years. Harder than the bank in 2011, harder than the graveside. Grit isn't loud. Grit is signing the party menu with steady hands while your world burns, sleeping 3 hours and showing up anyway, kneeling on brick in a gray dress to ask your child the question you're terrified to hear answered. Ethan found his own version of it later, selling his truck, scrubbing a stranger's kitchen under his own name, writing letters that cost him more than money ever did. That's why there was anything left for us to rebuild. So this is what I know now. Live straight, because your honesty today is somebody's rescue tomorrow. Think slow, because the people who want what's yours are counting on you to feel fast. And when the night comes that demands everything, stand up anyway. The fortune they tried to steal sits safe in a vault. The fortune that matters made biscuits with me last Sunday, flour to the elbows, laughing at his mother. I planted 30 years of work and nearly lost my boy. Now I plant phone calls, suppers, and time, and I intend to be rich the rest of my days.